situation itself should dictate the response. You understand? Now, what happens in this regard is if you have a lot of experience in situations, you may apply that experience to this particular situation. But what you have to also do by staying rational is not assume that this situation is exactly the same as the last one that looked like it. Because it may well not be. On the other hand, it may well be. Okay? In other words, you don't become prejudiced to something. Okay? When you do a tactical assessment, you take in all relevant information. And you apply your intuition to that information. You with me on this? Basically, how you train is how you react. And what you need to do in a tactical situation when you're using your mindset is to apply good old-fashioned common sense to that tactical assessment. Okay? In other words, no rose-colored glasses and no psycho-fucking colored glasses. Detached of emotion. Okay? This sort of gives an idea. What we have to do is take in all the circumstances of this situation. Okay? This means we need to stay rationally attached to what's going on. We need to look at all the factors involved. Now, this is not, again, the D-Day invasion we're talking about. We're talking about something that takes place in seconds. All right? So what we're doing in this assessment wheel in our brain, and what's very important for you to understand, in a difficult situation, a crisis-based situation, you need to train your brain to operate in a logical sequence. You understand? Because the brain is very lazy. And if you don't train it to operate in a logical sequence, it tends to flutter or stutter, much like a car on ice spinning its tires. Or it panics because it has nowhere to go. Like the fire alarm goes off, what the fuck do you do? So, your first action is to start assessing the situation. Move it through that assessment, taking in all information, decide on that action. And then you're going to have to act on it. Okay? Now, what you're doing here is you're in an action state. Okay? And what bad guys count on is not, and what everyone thinks about action and self-defense is fighting, punching, strategy, etc. In the phase of this holding mechanism, this is action. Mental action is still action because the brain is working physically here. You understand? All the neurons, everything is charging, is kicking and kicking and kicking and kicking. You are in operational action. You're just not physically in it. You understand? And when you train yourself to do this, and when you train your students to do this, they are not going to be easily fooled when they have to go physical. You understand? They are also going to be able to say, well, I've got to preempt the hit. I've got to start the action physically. Okay? Or they're going to decide, hey, I can get out of this by simply telling the guy to piss off. Alright? But if they can't do this evaluation and create the mindset in which to do it, they will not make a rational choice. They'll make an emotional-based choice. Does that make sense to you? And again, it's no different than training a punch or a kick. The brain has to be trained to think and act like this. Okay? Now, let's break this down a little bit more. Okay? We have a threat. Okay? When we decide on actions, there's a physical action and there's a psychological action, and they both work in unison. You understand? We need our senses to input a physical action. So this means in stage 1 of this operational plan, we focus on the environment. As we focus on the environment, this kicks in a psychological. So in other words, we're reading all the signs. Analogy, you're in the bush, you're hunting, and you want to kill Bambi for dinner. Okay? And you're looking for signs of where Bambi is. You're looking for the footprints, the hoof prints. You're looking where the horns have taken the stuff off the trees, etc., etc. You're looking for droppings. Anybody here not hunted? Okay, there you go. Anyway, so we're looking at signs. So we focus on the environment for signs. In your tactical assessment, you do the same thing. This feeds back into the brain. This creates a psychological action which identifies your feelings. Are you feeling fear right now? Do you feel threatened? What level of threat is that? Do you understand? Now this comes back to what we talked about when we're doing controlling reaction or death? Are you going to use a whiplash? Are you going to use a battery man? Are you use eights? Or will you bag drill the guy? Do you just have to use verbal control, etc., etc.? You understand where I'm coming from here? So, once you identify your feelings, you're now moving into stage 2. Because you're going to read, am I afraid? What is the actual mindset of this individual? This means you are now going to visually, auditory, or through your hearing, isolate the danger signs. Once you've isolated the danger signs, this is going to feed back physically because you're using hearing, etc. Psychologically, as you're going to use the imagery skills. Okay, what's this guy up? Is this an assault? What is it? Imagery means all the training you've done, all the experience you've done, so like what Robert was just talking about, comes to play. This is where your intuition, everyone understands what I mean by intuition, comes into play. You understand? This is all part of imagery. Everybody with me thus far? This then leads to stage 3. Be sure of the technique you're going to do. Okay? And then think before acting. In this case, or in a police sense, for what Brandon would do is what I'm about to do lawful, or can I justify my level of action? You understand? And then you have your action plan, how you're going to take the guy out. Now this is all training response. Now what is important about this? We train it in scenario-based education, especially in the STAR program. You understand? And this is what Will was talking about when we did it in Calgary and guys were having a problem dealing with, because they hadn't been taught how to do this by their previous instructors, you understand? And they went into some serious panic and stuttering modes. And the reason they did it is their brain could not go into a logical 1, 2, 3 step. Their brain was like all over the map. Okay, oh God, what am I going to do? Etc., 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 etc. And the brain, through the sensors, wanted to give them all this information, but they could not apply a psychological identity to what those feelings were. You understand? In other words, in this case, they created panic in themselves by not understanding what they were feeling. You ever had that happen to you? And the reason that is because you didn't spend time using imagery skills and also in isolating what that feeling is and using your intuition. And if you have no training, you have nothing. You're going by the seat of your pants, for lack of a better idea.